Hello and welcome back to the Antirati studio. I'm joined now by Kris from HCL, and just to contextualize some of what we're going to talk about, the sort of guts of it, can you tell us a little bit about HCL, so that people get an idea of where you're coming from?
So HCL is a 90,000 employee strong, $6.5 billion revenue multinational corporation. We're based in Noida in India. We serve global clients and about 10% of our services to the energy and power industry. If you were to ask us a bit about the type of work we do everything from applications management, infrastructure management, solution transformation, capital C consulting as well.
So you would provide an entire outsourced service for a utility? Am I understanding that correctly?
We will, and that's some of the work we're excited about doing, but we'll also come in and engage utilities around transformational initiatives, around smart grid initiatives, smart meter initiatives, or customer engagement management initiatives, which is something that we'll be talking about later today.
And what differentiates you from some of the other players who may be saying, no, here's what we do,
Well, I think we do a lot of the same work. If we were to listen to our customers, and we do, and we were to listen to our analyst community, and we often do, we are differentiated by the way we serve customers. We've had a constant growth in revenue, a constant growth in margin, which is terrific if our customer was Wall Street. But what's really exciting to HCL is a constant increase at the same time of breakout revenue and margin growth in customer satisfaction. It's generally easy to optimize one of those three things. You can grow revenue at the expense of margin. You can grow margin at the expense of revenue. You can grow all of those at the expense of customer satisfaction, and that's really where we've succeeded.
And taking that thread of customer satisfaction, we were talking a little bit off air, and again, we've been doing some interviews about engagement of the customer, not your customer, but the customer's customer almost.
Sure,
the utility customer. And that is certainly for us, with the pieces that we've been writing, we're saying, okay, that needs to become more important. It needs to become more part of the DNA of the utility. I mean, what's your view on that shift, and how can the industry enable the utility to do that?
Well, we do agree with you. We think there's a fundamental change that we see evidenced at this conference, among others, in the intelligence and the real-time availability of data to utilities that has never been there before. We have millisecond or at least end register meter data available to us throughout the day now, and we're starting to do really exciting things about optimizing the grid, about optimizing the performance of our work crews in solving the intermittent or the infrequent outages that we do have. We're a 3 to 4 nines industry moving towards a 5 nines level of reliability, thanks to the telemetry and the information that we're now gathering. But the ability for us to translate that into a customer experience is really lagging our ability to manage big data to optimize the grid itself. And that's something that HCL is distinctly focused on.
So if we can bring that to life a little bit, because again, we've written about it, and I've always asked the question. It's like, okay, so you've become great at managing the infrastructure. You optimized it, made it more efficient. You're reducing costs because your meters means you don't have to have more people in the field and so on. Great, good job. But what should that customer experience look like? I mean, at the moment, it's a piece of paper once a year, at worst. But if you can bring it to life, where do you think it should go? What should it feel like for the customer?
Well, let's talk generally first. I think customers' expectations aren't set by the traditional interaction with utilities. They're really set by the state of the market of the great companies that work with customers. Whether those customers those companies are Amazon or Apple or UPS. Some of the things that they do extraordinarily well is they meet customers where they want to be met. So that's the whole multi-channel argument. They serve customers through traditional channels like voice and paper, but moreover, they meet customers at their at their phones through SMS and mobility applications, on the web and through chat, and on social media. So they have a ubiquitous presence in their customers' lives and meet them at the platform choice or the channel choice of their customer. I think that's pretty well understood, although not something that's been deeply adopted by utilities. To the degree that utilities have adopted it, most often we find that there's a fragmented approach to the delivery of a customer experience across channels as opposed to a uniform and integrated one. Way too often we find that the social media desk staffed by a utility is in a corner. It's a couple of interns or a couple of reasonably new hires or some folks from marketing. They're not measured the way that we measure our customer care staff. The quality assurance over the top of the work that they do isn't the same. It's not an industrialized process, it's still a cottage industry, and it's a fragmented cottage industry. So the channels need to change for the way we engage customers, and that's something that's important.
And the channels need to join up as well, which is what you were saying. But when you draw the line, and this is hopefully the picture I want to paint is the experience I have with some of the great retailers out there, like Amazon or whatever, becomes very personalized.
Well, you're absolutely right.
It's about me. I mean, how do you personalize energy?
Sure. Well, let's go with that. It starts with meeting customers the way they want to be met. It's serving them the way they want to be served, either self-service or high touch. So that starts to personalize it. The next thing you do as you move away from channels is you start to think about what is it that customers care about? And how are we exposing ourselves to the customers? When you think about something as simple as having a package delivered to you through UPS, UPS does a terrific job in exposing to the customer their process. It's an extraordinarily complicated process, no doubt. The logistics behind what they do undoubtedly are numbing. And yet they break it down into 5 or 6 events that are relevant to the customer. Order placed, label produced, package picked up, package at distribution center, package out for delivery, package on your doorstep. They break it down. They create a level of transparency into their operations that's attractive to customers. Do we do that as a utility?
Probably not.
Not as often as we should, right?
We're both consumers,
of course
right?
we are, yeah.
I haven't seen that happen to me, and I don't know whether you've experienced it.
I think it's emerging,
right?
But when you order a taxi through Uber, you immediately can see on your Google map on your handheld phone the location of all the different Google drivers in your area. Wouldn't it be comforting if when you wanted to understand what the situation was in the response to an outage, you could immediately understand where are all the trucks in your neighborhood? That level of transparency, while it can be damaging, we certainly don't want customers badgering our linemen as they execute.
Walking out the door, hey,
of course,
get on with it.
But the point is the transparency, the ability to decide and to open up our APIs and help our customers understand what we're doing on their behalf shows a level of maturity and confidence consistent with the best in market retail providers. So that ultimately moves from transparency to empathy. When customers start to see the world through our eyes, they better appreciate the obstacles between us and success. Go ahead.
Because it's one of those things, but certainly where I live in the UK, and when I come home, I flick the light switch, and it goes on. Mm-hmm. That is most people's thinking of, right, that's great, that happens. The understanding about the complexity that this market is going through, renewables and all those sort of things. You're right. I think we need to expose more of it. But what I wanted to go to is you touched on the UPS thing, where they've said, right, okay, here are 4 parts of our behind the scenes backdoor processes that we're going to expose.
That's right.
That'll make the customers feel better. You've given us an illustration of one of them for the energy market. Have you guys sort of brainstormed any others that we can bring to life here?
Well, sure, of course. I mean, when you talk about personalization and how do you personalize energy, one of the things that the great retail companies and the great customer service companies, not so much retail companies, do is they anticipate need. They anticipate it based upon what you're experiencing and what you're expressing. So anyone who's ordered a movie on Netflix or bought a book on Amazon understands that based upon a consumption pattern, we are served options that we might not even know exist. Having rented Silver Linings Playbook, we're offered the opportunity to rent Almost Famous because they're somehow similarly organized. That anticipatory notion of customer service is something that we see as very, very important in serving the energy industry, to personalize it and to expand it, to make it better for customers. So how might that work? Let's imagine that you're a customer, and most of our customers are at best episodic participants in the energy industry. They engage in the commodity when they move in, when they move out, when they're exposed to a cold snap or a hot snap that drives their expected prices up or down, or when they experience the very, very infrequent outage on the network that they're served by. They're episodic at best. During those episodes of interaction, do we take the advantage of that contact to serve them better, to anticipate future needs, or do we work to quickly dispose of the call or just dispose of the contact and move on?
Because those are some of the existing KPIs, aren't they? Which is what some of the frustrations I always have with service desks, where I feel like actually your KPI to me as the caller feels like I need to get this done in 3 minutes rather than I need to take as long as it takes to solve this problem.
Or better yet, I want to solve your problem and get on to a richer interaction. I want to solve a problem that you haven't thought through yet. So an example might be you call in the middle of the summer with a question about your bill. It turns out, when we get through analyzing your question and we look at the correlation between your bill and your neighbor's bills and your bill this month and same time last year, we sort out the fact that it was a consumption-related issue. You consumed a lot more because it was a lot hotter, and maybe you've got a change in your personal situation. You've got a child at home now, and your air conditioning consumption is much higher. Yeah. We've solved your problem, right? Well, yeah. No, we've solved the problem you called about. What we didn't do was take care of this for the future. We didn't take the opportunity to listen to you and to stimulate a response beyond the question you asked. We didn't stimulate hey, we noticed that what you are suffering from or what you're disappointed with is the correlation between your bill and the temperature of the day. Let's help you break that correlation by selling you a budget billing plan, or by moving you to an index capped bill capped at X dollars a day, or a flat rate bill. So we solve your immediate problem, but what we should be doing,
solving the problem sustainably.
Or selling you something you didn't know exists. Yeah. Selling you an opportunity that you were unaware of. If you have an interruption at your home, one of the infrequent power outages, and you call to inquire about that, at the end, we almost always call back to find out, has your service been restored? Isn't there an opportunity to serve the customer even better by offering them the installation of a whole home surge protector?
Yeah.
Isn't there an opportunity to meet an unspoken demand or a poorly understood opportunity for them by enriching that customer experience and extending from being a commodity provider to being a comfort and convenience provider?
And again, as we start moving towards the whole bundled and competitive markets, UK is a prime example of that, competitive retail. That leads you to another part of it, which is customer churn. This is new vocabulary in the energy retail space. Sure. Churn was probably like, what's that? They pay the bill, and, I'm not worried, I'm the only person here. But now that you're moving into customer churn, that rich customer engagement has a sizable effect on churn, doesn't it? And it's so much harder to get new customers than it is to keep existing ones happy.
It is. It's profitable in multiple directions to keep existing customers happy. One is unattractive terms that you hear people using is the more entangled a customer is with their provider of any service, the less likely they are to churn. And that's, that sounds predatory. That sounds uncomfortable. I think the better way to think about it is the more understanding of the relationship and the deeper the relationship, the more enriched your relationship is, the more you're perceived as anticipating customers' needs and fulfilling them before the customer is even aware of the need, the more likely they are to be, and it's a cliche, but delighted with the service that you provide, even if the service itself is a reasonably low engagement service, a commodity service, as we often call the energy industry or the power industry. I think the more that you're anticipating and enriching the experience for customers, quite naturally they're going to be attracted to that, and they're going to be less likely to churn.
And as we're coming to the end of our time here, I want to ask you one final question, because, and this is my observation, so I'm not going to put words into your mouth, this is entirely my thoughts. It feels to me like, in talking to some of the utilities and so on, is that the skill set to have that level of customer engagement just is not in the DNA of the business. So are you going to see more and more companies like yours providing that skill set, providing that DNA, and enabling that interaction?
Well, what a wonderful pivot to something that's important to HCL. Thank you. It's not just skill set. It's skill set and it's tools. It's culture, skill set, tools. As you've described the customer care experience and the interaction with that you've seen, it's very easy to focus on disposing of customer calls very quickly. And quite frankly, often those are the only capabilities that the underlying systems that customer care agents have available to them. They're not stimulated to cross-sell, to offer enriched capabilities, to offer transparency and awareness of the various steps of the process. So, we've got to do more for our utilities customers, and to do that, utilities themselves need to adopt fundamental changes in their culture, their systems, and the actors that work with their customers. The solutions that HCL provides are cloud-based, integrated customer care solutions with integrated multi-channel management based on market-leading platforms from SAP, Genesis, OpenText, Verint, and others that we serve in a manner that eliminates performance risk. We'll take on as much accountability for customer outcomes, customer satisfaction, reduced churn rates, sales penetration rates, bad debt penetration rates, as a customer is willing, as a utility, would like us to take on. Thus, eliminating the ambiguous results often associated with transformational customer-facing change and making them attractive to a CFO by contracting with them from a credit-worthy counterparty with $6.5 billion in revenue and a real balance sheet. The flip side of that is we're not wed to any particular model. We'll work along any line of dimension of the insourced to outcome-based outsourced continuum that a customer wants to operate on. So we'll deploy the technologies. We'll deploy the technologies and transitionally outsource to basically sell a hedge on the risk of transformational change, or we'll sell long-term outcomes for customer care, business service metrics. So we'll operate along any of those lines.
And that must be, not only is that attractive to people in competitive markets, but I would imagine that sort of approach should be attractive to the current incumbents in markets that will be deregulated, because they've got a first mover advantage, haven't they? Because if they get that right, just before deregulation, you could make it very sticky and very hard for new entrants.
Well, I think that's part of it, but I also think in vertically integrated markets, where an investor-owned utility owns the whole stack, from generation to distribution to to the customer engagement side of things, frequently they're franchise monopolies. And we're granted a franchise, and we're granted the monopoly right. In exchange, there's a covenant.
Yes.
And the covenant is that we owe our customers great service. Great service doesn't stop at 5 nines reliability. I think that this is something that, if we can demystify it, if we can take the risk out of customer service, if we can create certainty in the business outcome, I think investments in customer service will compete very, very attractively with investments in a new fuel handling subsystem or remote metering.
You said it absolutely. It's like the definition of service is not the delivery of the product. It's the experience, isn't it?
Of course it is.
Absolutely. Well, it's been great talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Here. Thank you.
It was my pleasure.
And thank you as well for watching.